I like to think of Intel as providing the brain power behind the world's compute. So whether that happens to be in your PC, your laptop, services using out at the edge, through the network and into the core data center. I've believed for, again, the past several years that the role of the CIO just continues to increase in importance. The entire business now runs on IT. Like, IT isn't a support function anymore. It's the heart of the business, and that's a lot of responsibility. IT is not just infrastructure or the backbone. It's actually moved into every single business unit. So all of the business units have their own developers at a company. They have their own services they're trying to provide. And so that connection has to be really strong.
This is CIONET TV. My name is Hendrik Deckers. I'm here today with Lisa Spelman, who's the Corporate VP and General Manager of the Intel Xeon products at Intel Corporation. A very warm welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Lisa, you studied business administration, marketing and finance at the University of Washington, and you have been with Intel since the year 2000. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. What's your background and who are you really?
Yes. Well, thank you again so much for having me. So if I describe myself in a really short sentence, I'd say I'm a business leader, I'm a technology leader, I'm a mother, and I'm a pickleball player. So these are, my defining characteristics if I try to really boil it down. But I graduated with a business degree, came right out of university, and I joined Intel. And when I started, I thought, gosh, I'm going to stay here a year because that'll look good on my CV. And then I'll have this great, big company tech experience. And here we are heading into my, 23rd year. And I've continued to have these wonderful experiences with the opportunity to, again, be in finance, be in product marketing and product management. I've had the chance to be in technical sales. And I've actually had the opportunity to spend 5 years of my career in Intel IT, managing global infrastructure and operations. So I've just had this great breadth of experience that has been so fulfilling. And now I have a wonderful job being the general manager of a product line and really having the opportunity to not just contribute to Intel's business, but I genuinely feel I have the opportunity to provide products and services that improve the lives of everyone on Earth.
So Lisa, give us the big picture of Intel. It's a household name. We all use your products, but tell us a little bit more. What does Intel really stand for, and what is it that it does really, really well?
I like to think of Intel as providing the brain power behind the world's compute. So whether that happens to be in your PC, your laptop, services using out at the edge, through the network and into the core data center. And if you think Intel is really the foundation of cloud and cloud services that are delivered around the globe for consumers, for us as individuals, for entertainment, also for so much of the world's work that gets done these days. So we are a hardware company, we're a software company, and we're a manufacturing company. And that manufacturing arm is so critically important to us. We think it's critically important to the global supply chain to ensure that companies around the world will always have access to that so important compute. One of the things I like most about my job is this ability to help our customers pull out the value of these incredibly advanced technologies. So not everyone at our customer needs to know all the nitty-gritty details of what a Xeon processor does, but they have the opportunity to benefit from the capabilities that we've built in. So helping customers find that return on investment, helping them deliver their digital business transformation is one of the most exciting aspects. An area where we've put a ton of focus over the past several years has been our investment in AI. It's just growing so fast. It's an explosive phase of growth right now. And we've been setting the stage to ensure, again, that businesses around the globe have the opportunity to take advantage of all the goodness that it can provide, while also being focused on the ethical use and the democratization of AI, making sure that it's not only accessible to just a few that can afford the biggest things. So we really want to push that accessibility for all.
Okay, and we're going to talk about all these different things, but let's talk maybe let's start from the top. I mean, you're in business more than 20 years, so you know what's cooking out there. We live in special times. There's a lot of turmoil going on. Things are changing faster and faster. So where do you see the biggest challenges that companies that you work with, where do you see the biggest challenges that they're facing today?
Yeah. Intel is a company that itself has gone through tremendous amount of change. We actually started in the memory business and then had the opportunity to provide the world's first general purpose processor. And from then, you could say the rest is history, but so many evolutions there, just working on how do we deliver for our customers across this huge span of workloads. Like I said, in your laptop all the way to the most high performance computing data centers. So we really are, working to cover it all. And then also working on all of those technologies that connect to that processor to ensure that, again, customers have a good experience. When I think about the challenges customers are facing today, you even mentioned this, levels of global uncertainty. I talked about the global supply chain and the security of that supply chain being incredibly important these days, and we invest there heavily. I also see just such a incredible pace of change. If you look at business 10 years ago compared to today, and the digitization that's happened, and just the amount of industries that have been disrupted or have, in smart cases, taken the opportunity to disrupt themselves. Just about everything is done differently now than it was 10 years ago, even if it's still providing the same service. And you look at industries like hospitality and tourism, and you see the hotel has had so much disruption with the advent of companies like Airbnb, and the hotels have not stood still. So those companies have also innovated and are now renting out houses. And it's just a small example of the way that evolution of the services that companies offer, even when they're in a very well-defined market, have evolved, and how those services have fundamentally become technology services. It's all done through applications. It's all done through the ability to search and find and customize and specialize. So it's hard for me to think of a single industry that hasn't transitioned into being a digitally led service.
Okay. And so what does that mean? I mean, CIONET, we're a community for CIO digital leaders around the globe. So where do you see the role and the IT and digital strategies play a role to support organizations in facing these challenges?
I've believed for, again, the past several years that the role of the CIO just continues to increase in importance. The entire business now runs on IT. Like, IT isn't a support function anymore. It's the heart of the business. And that's a lot of responsibility. And in some cases, it can be a change in charter. At the same time, all CIOs have gone through this journey of what does it mean to live and deliver services in a cloud-first world. And there was a time there where the narrative and every CEO was pressuring the CIO to tell me about our cloud-first strategy, tell me about how we're moving, how we're changing everything. I think a lot of that has come back into balance now, and it's a cloud smart and a cloud architecture strategy. So you see so much private cloud, hybrid cloud, and the much smarter utilization of the public cloud in order to, again, provide services, support developers. I mean, you think of all these industries that, again, a decade ago, they didn't even have developers. It wasn't part of what was required, but now that application level service is fundamental to how you connect with your customers, how you personalize your services. So I just see that role of IT transforming from having been just help me manage the cost down, like bring the cost down, keep us secure, into keep us secure and be the underpinnings of how we're going to grow this business.
Okay. Now, you're in Intel focusing on the data center business. So how if we talk about IT strategy, digital strategy that companies have completely turned around, it's now, like you say, the engine of companies. So what's the impact that we see on the data centers? And what have you seen change over the last 10 years in the data center business?
Yeah. Again, that pace of innovation and pace of evolution. So if you look back 10 years, it was the dawn of the cloud. And I touched on this, but you had so many people that were running their IT infrastructure as at times a very static set of invested in hardware connected to private networks, moving data inside the house. And now you just look at, again, the way that services are provided, how many businesses are, connected directly to their consumer, the use of that cloud architecture in order to drive that fundamental flexibility, as well as increase the capacity within the same hardware investment. We've found over the years that every time we add compute capability, the demand for compute capability goes up. So it truly is, in our view, a nearly insatiable requirement. And so over that last 10 years, you see this spreading not just from, again, major cloud service providers delivering consumer services or applications, but you see it happening into just about every industry there is possible. So the digitization of all of the data, the need to protect it, and the ability to analyze it, store it, access it around the globe has become just fundamental to the definition of what does IT success look like. The other challenge we see too is that IT is not just the infrastructure or the backbone. It's actually moved into every single business unit. So all of the business units have their own developers at a company. They have their own services they're trying to provide. And so that connection has to be really strong. I think it's changed some of the relationships that the CIO needs to have inside of the company. And, when I was in Intel IT, I was at the time that I was there in my career was at the beginning of this move to cloud. And we went through some of those growing pains and figuring it out. And it is a journey. It's not an overnight. But once you've set that infrastructure up, you've put yourself in a position where you are so much more flexible and able to respond. Behind all of that, Intel has continued to invest to ensure we're providing the right sustainability of our solutions so that we're continually increasing the performance for our customers while pulling down the power that's required. We have continued to add in accelerators for the workloads that demand the most compute cycles. Again, that's AI, that can be database management, that can be in network packet processing. So that's the areas where we're really focusing our unique innovation in order to allow our customers to get X factor improvements in both performance and performance per watt, because we know how important that is.
Yep. Let's talk a little bit about your data center business. I mean, with your Xeon products, how big is that part, the data center business of the total Intel pie, let's say, and where do you see the biggest growth opportunities?
Yep. The Xeon business is, a $20 billion a year business or so. And, we're continuing to find new opportunities to grow that. I talked a little bit about network. We've expanded the applicability of Xeon to be able to now handle what used to be fixed function ASICs that were servicing, one part of the network workload. So we've driven consolidation and virtualization of those workloads and done a ton of work in the software industry with a bunch of our partners in order to make it so that your, network can run on Xeon. If you're driving along on the highway and you see those, towers that are sometimes very cleverly disguised as trees and hidden, you'll think and look at that, and every single one of those has a Xeon sitting out there at the edge, helping provide those network services. So we're continually looking for ways to expand how Xeon, the product line that I manage, can better service the world. Another area I touched on before is AI. We started this journey back in, 2017, 2018, adding in unique AI accelerators to increase the performance of both inference and training on a Xeon CPU. A lot of people think that AI must be delivered on a GPU, and GPUs provide a ton of value, especially for really huge workloads and very intense training. But the world has a tremendous amount of installed Xeon infrastructure that is not fully utilized. And when you have the opportunity to utilize that capacity, you're again delivering a wonderful performance per watt solution, and you're increasing the value of your total cost of ownership because you're taking an asset you already own and need for your general purpose infrastructure, and you're turning it into an AI asset as well. So we just see a lot of positive momentum and movement and growth. So those are two examples of the way that we've not only seen the markets evolve, but are personally driving to evolve the Xeon business and make sure that it stays applicable for all of our customers' evolving requirements.
Yeah. Now the data center and the processor business is a highly competitive business, right? So how do you make sure, and Intel has done so for many, many decades already, how do you make sure that you stay ahead, that you stay competitive, that you're leading the pack?
Yep. It is a competitive business. It's a challenge. It's a business that there's always challengers trying to get into. So there's a couple things that we focus on. One is, of course, first, our customers. What do they need? So listening is a learned skill. I really don't think many people are born ready to listen. I think it's a learned skill. And so we really focus on how do we get those requirements in, and how are we getting, the broadest breadth of them before we make these choices. People might not know this, but making a feature add into silicon is a 3 and 4 year journey, best case. I mean, these things, it takes a long time to develop, to test, and to get ready. The second thing I want to highlight besides the customer requirements is the ecosystem. So we're just really big believers in the open ecosystem and driving and delivering the broadest open ecosystem of any data center microprocessor. And we have worked for over 20 years in the data center space specifically in order to build those partnerships, build up that network of companies and communities that we engage with, so that every generation, they're ready for the newest features. They're ready to pull through that value. They're set to offer, performance, sustainability characteristics, and continue to, engage with our collective or shared end customers, so that they can get value right out of the box, as we call it. So that ecosystem investment and those partnerships are just absolutely fundamental to what we drive. Like, hardware without software is nothing. Software without hardware is nothing. And putting the two together is really where the magic happens.
So, Lisa, you talked about partnerships and being very, very important. You also talked about an open software partnership there. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it is, foundational for us. So Intel's actually the number one Linux code contributor and has been for several years. Again, we're thought of as a hardware and manufacturing company, but we're actually super invested on the software side too. And just an example of, we have this decades-long partnership with Red Hat. And we consider ourselves just like a center of that open source ecosystem, working together and driving this transition that I talked about from, how do you get from just managing IT infrastructure into truly delivering a digital asset that serves your entire company's growth, that hybrid multi-cloud infrastructure, collaborating together to ensure that every generation we've got the right features and capabilities upstreamed, that we're ready to go, that Red Hat's providing like the service level that's required to be enterprise class. And we take seriously that work together of delivering joint solutions and being in a position where our customers can rely on us. Like, they know we're working together. They know we're setting the foundation for software-defined infrastructure, and that every generation we're going to continue to evolve, advance, get better, and be there to support customers. So that's an example of where I see open and supported, and that ecosystem partnership just kind of coming together to deliver customer value.
Okay. Now, Lisa, you're in the privileged position that you can look a little bit in the future, right? You are busy what's going to come on the market in 3, 4, 5 years. So tell us a little bit, give us a glimpse of what can we expect? Tell us a little bit about the data center roadmap that you have and what you're most excited about.
Yep. It is true. I do spend an inordinate amount of time in my life when I think about it, talking about 2026, 2027, 2028. And, I feel like it's almost like it's tomorrow, but I do recognize there is a few years to get through first. When we look out into that time frame, we really are looking at solving customer problems and challenges and this insatiable demand for compute at a more system level. So I know I manage a microprocessor business, but that all sits within a system architecture. And we're really trying to bring together the best of not just Intel, but the whole ecosystem to approach these problems of data movement, data storage, data processing together into a true system level view to give customers that absolute best performance per dollar and per watt of power that they drive. We continue to see AI on this, upward trajectory. In some ways, I even look at it and say there's 2 buckets of workloads. There's AI workloads and there's all the other workloads. And I think as far as size, they'll come into balance. Right now, all the other workloads are bigger, but I think the AI, the growth is just phenomenal. So, we look at how those AI capabilities will essentially infiltrate every single workload and become a part of them. And how do we best prepare not just ourselves, but put our customers in with the right technology and tools in order to address those. The last one I want to talk about when I think about the future is security. And, I've worked in the security space for over a decade now. And one of the interesting things is the chief information security officer has gone from, let's just be honest, the person that everyone said, oh no, they're going to make me do something. They're going to make me do a training, or I have to slow down the performance of my capability because they're going to make me put some controls around it, to a fundamental and foundational leader at the company. There is nothing more sacred than the data. So when we look at our investments, we want to provide the absolute most secure, bar none, hardware underpinning in order for secure software to be built on top. And we take that responsibility in the industry very seriously. And we take it actually so far back as not even just what's in the actual silicon as far as security features, but even the security of our supply chain and every unit as we run it through our manufacturing process, and the security of that unit before it gets to our customer. So we really are looking at this security as a complete end-to-end, connected value that we want to deliver to customers.
Yeah. So, out there, and especially with AI and exploding data volumes, the demand for compute power is just exploding as well. It's exponential growth that we're seeing there, and so that has a big impact on sustainability, right? Today, what is it? All IT systems around the world, they use 1 to 2% of global energy, and that's going to grow to 3-4%. So how the hell are we going to make sure that we contain that we keep that under control? And how do you? You're in the center of this basically. What's your vision on this? How can we really control this?
That 2% growing to 4% is it's mind-boggling when you step back and think about it. So I do believe we have an obligation to address this. And on the really positive side, the movement has gone so far beyond where it started with some levels of green marketing, where the focus was on, I need to be able to say the things about how I'm green. This is, honestly, like you were planting trees, which is awesome. Like I'm not disparaging that, but it has now become like a fundamental requirement. You can, we have customers who are, they have space that they've purchased, they have cooling, they've got like the whole infrastructure set up, and they can't fill their racks because they've run out of power that they can pull from the wall. And, energy costs are exploding. Back to when you talked about global instability, you can see spikes, like this all over the place. So the energy efficiency has become a business imperative, not a nice to have or a marketing characteristic. So we are investing in this in two ways. The first is, again, back to how we manufacture our products. So we are working towards, net zero carbon emissions. We run the greenest silicon manufacturing operation in the globe. We use more recycled energy. We recycle wastewater. We recycle the heat. We actually use the heat from our manufacturing processes that it kicks off in order to heat our buildings and to heat the water in our buildings. So we have made tremendous progress in delivering that most sustainable manufactured silicon in the world. But then there's the whole what happens once you start operating it. And that's the second area of investment. So in each generation, our goal is, again, increase that compute power, that capability, that performance, while bringing down the power that's required to hit the same level of performance as the generation before. We've also added in features, and I'll talk to one. It's called optimized power mode. I just want to use it as an example, not to get down into, the nitty gritty, but what optimized power mode does is it allows our customers. So once it's deployed in your data center, out in the field, you can choose with very simple BIOS settings, literally like easy button, click on, click off, to run in an optimized power mode. And this is something where you might take down the power draw by 20-ish% while only degrading the performance by 2 to 3%. So if you think of a lot of the workloads that customers run, they actually don't require the absolute peak most performance that can be delivered, or they don't require that all day, every day. So you can make these little changes and have a measurable difference in your power consumption. I sort of liken it to electric vehicles where, people might have a charger at their house and they set their charging to the time of the day when
80%.
Energy demand is the lowest and they get the, better pricing. We're working to give our customers the ability to dynamically manage their power in that same way so that they can, take control. And we see very real performance improvements in that and by performance, I mean performance of the infrastructure, where you can start literally pulling out the carbon emissions of your data center operating environment with these little, tweaks and tunes. So we're pretty excited about those types of offerings in order to just help our customers better manage. The last one I'll talk about is what we view as, 2 or 3 years ago, we were calling it next generation. It's now hitting the now generation, and that's liquid cooling. So, if you've ever seen liquid and immersion cooling, it's actually pretty cool. You take basically just a standard processor on a standard motherboard, and you can, in immersion, you just dunk it straight in that liquid and it keeps running. It's kind of amazing to see because we've all lived our lives being terrified of even spilling water on our phones. But we're working on that liquid cooling standards and how to drive deployments, especially in new data center build-outs, because a liquid cooling offering can bring down the power draw by 30% or more, and it allows you to actually add more performance at those lower power levels. So there's a lot of potential there, but there's a lot to be worked out on what are the right liquids and how do you install and manage that data center. So we're pretty excited about the potential there.
Yeah. Very, very important topic. Now, another very important topic, and we already touched a little bit on it, is of course AI and Gen AI that's going on. So you're in the heart of technology there with your processors and at Intel, and you must be having very secret conversations with top software companies about where this is all going. Like you said, the software and the hardware, they need to go hand in hand. So you can also look a little bit in the future of AI, I can imagine. So tell us a little bit, what's going on? What's your view? How is AI, in your view, going to change everybody's life in society and in business?
Yeah. It is a true inflection point. I think that phrase probably gets used a lot, but it really is. So AI's been, worked on for over 50 years, the algorithmic definition, and it reached a bit of a breakthrough point, several years ago with that combination of cloud architecture releasing so much compute power, the advancements of, networks, the security advancements had just created this environment where AI was given room to start to, explode a little bit. And that where it started first was with a lot of consumer applications, a lot of things like image recognition, tagging your friends in photos. It started to recognize who was who. And then it evolved into recommendation systems. For those of you that shop online, I didn't include that as a, defining characteristic of myself, but I confess there's a few clicks here or there I've participated in. And you see, you buy something and then it recommends you might also, want this. That's all AI driven. And man, they get it right a lot of the time. I do want those other things. So it moved into recommender systems, and then it evolved into this, how do we process language more naturally? And how do we respond to, human inputs? And I look at what's happened with generative AI and these large language models, and I really think it's AI on a rocket ship. Never before has the capability entered the common discourse in such an aggressive and quick way. I mean, you talk about, you've got your, middle school kid trying to do his homework using ChatGPT, and you've got your grandma talking about it because she's, heard about it. I mean, it's just spanned everywhere. I'm still a believer that AI has the opportunity to improve the lives and the experience of so many industries. I think of healthcare especially, like just the opportunity to get to more personalized, more specialized recommendations, treatment plans that take into account what everyone else what has worked for everyone else that shares the same characteristics, in the world. So that human potential is fantastic. It also has challenges as well. It can be harder and harder to figure out who actually did write that paper. Harder to figure out, is that image real or was it altered or generated? So there's work to do on both sides, human potential and ensuring that it's, used well and safely. When we look out into the future, though, we do see continued growth and, evolution of this generative AI. And even before it hit the, common language, we had started working on, again, I go back to what is that system level infrastructure that is required to deliver these types of solutions. And I think we've made tremendous progress there, tremendous progress on our software offerings in the ecosystem, and giving people the visibility, the transparency to understand what and how their AI is being utilized and evolving. So we see it as a massive opportunity for Intel as a company. We see it as a tremendous opportunity for our customers to continue to evolve their services. And we see it as a very exciting and dynamic space. So you'll hear lots more from us as we continue to invest there. For my product line especially, we're just going to continue to evolve those features that we've invested in, and ensuring that they are delivering just really, really strong total cost of ownership benefits within that general purpose infrastructure. So the Xeon platform and Xeon processor is going to continue to be just an amazing AI solution that can deliver so much capability before you get to a GPU level solution. So we really see that all playing together.
Okay. Now, Lisa, let's talk a little bit more about yourself. You're the general manager today of the Intel Xeon product line. So how would you describe fundamentally your role in the organization, and where is it that you spend most of your time?
Yeah. I have a senior leadership role in the organization. So at that point, I feel like my job is to unlock the very best of my teams. It's a pure scale mechanism. So anything that I can do, even if I do that well, or it's in my area of domain expertise, I am hurting the organization at times if I'm choosing to do a bunch of it myself, because then I'm not scaling the capability of the entire organization. So where do I spend most of my time? In meetings. And that's just the truth. But I you have to remember the business of delivering Xeon, meeting with customers, all of that. It's a big business. It takes a lot of people. And it's that reminder of, while this is one of 10 meetings in my day, or 15, it might be the only time in a quarter or even a year that some of these engineers or other leaders engage with me. So it's really that reminder to show up with the right leadership presence in every interaction, because this is how you're going to scale your impact. And so much of that as a leader is the affinity and connection that team members feel towards you and the vision you're setting.
Okay. Tell me a little bit, how big is the team? I mean, the Intel in total number of people, the Xeon business, the people that you have to take care of.
Yeah, well, I care for a lot. So Intel is over 100,000 employees. Then if you go down to all the people that are touching, impacting, working on Xeon and represent my Xeon leadership team, it's over 10,000. And then when you go into my direct organization, it's around 1,000 team members. So, there's a scale there, and I engage at all of those levels. So, every quarter, myself and one of our senior fellows, just absolute technical leader, top technical leader at the company, focused on Xeon, he and I do a webcast that's open to all of the Intel employees. We want them to understand the strategy, understand the progress we're making, hear the feedback we're getting from customers, talk about the next generation technologies. So again, it's all the things we do to build that connection so that people are committed to the cause.
Okay, so communication is a big thing, of course, but how would you describe in general your management style, and what would you say is your secret sauce of building successful teams?
Well, two things. I try to be a very purpose-driven leader, but I do like to bring fun to work. We deal with incredibly high-stress situations. We take very seriously the responsibility that we are accountable for much of the global infrastructure. Like, the world runs on Xeon. But I also try to make sure we're not taking ourselves too seriously all the time. It's good to have fun. And I also think that a little bit of humor, a little bit of levity, it tends to unlock more creativity from people. It's one of the ways that you can create and have work feel like a safe space to bring your ideas to the table. And again, at my level, in my position, if you're the only one with the ideas, then you've really screwed something up. So, you've got to have more than just what you can think of. So I'm just a big believer in that fun. And then for team success, I really believe in hiring for fit, not just for, accomplishments, resume, technical depth, those characteristics of the work. So being able to do the job is incredibly important. But I'll pick a candidate that's 80% of the way there versus one that's 98% of the way there if I feel like they complement the rest of the team better. They either add a skill set we don't have, or they, fit into, some of the system that we're building. And that fit and that dynamic of having a team and a staff that is high performing, high function, high trust, I think is just so important. You want a leadership team that can essentially operate and function without you. So that's one of the things I really think hard about when I make hiring decisions.
Okay, and how easy is it for you, or how difficult is it to attract really top people, top talent, and to grow them and to retain them in your business?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot of opportunity that exists in tech and in the world that we live in. But I think if you're a good coach, if you respect people's experience and you respect their domain knowledge, and you bring them into your community and the fold, I think retention gets a lot easier. I'm really proud of the fact that, during even during COVID, when everyone went home, and that, it's absolute uptick in tech hiring and all of that, none of my staff members left the company. They all stayed and stayed committed to the cause during a difficult and challenging time. And I think it's not just because they're committed to me. I think it's because they're committed to each other. And they understand their connection to the business. So I think with, some of those good behaviors, you really can, retain people well. I like to say, commit to helping your people grow and then actually take the action that you just committed to. Like, you have to live into those commitments. I'm also a big believer, tell people when they've done a good job. Like, you don't have to make that a secret. Let them know. And I think some of these things are fairly simple, but a lot of leaders make it look too hard. And, focusing on those basics. I like to say, you don't hire really great people to micromanage the heck out of them. You hire them to unlock them. And so if you think of your job as an unlocker more than anything else, then that's how you're going to behave.
If the more I walk around in your offices and I go to the coffee machine and I speak to a number of the people that work with you, what do you think when you're not around that they say about you? How do you think you're perceived as a leader?
Well, I do consider myself to be an approachable leader, and I do get lots of feedback on that. So I think I am someone that people can relate to, and connect to. I do try to share with, even the broad teams, a bit about myself. Like, I don't want them to see me as just a work robot. I'm a person too. We recently have returned to the office, over the past several months, more than we were during, the pandemic. And a lot of people is, oh man, that struggle of the challenge of figuring out all the schedules and what I got used to. So I've tried to be open about that and share, yes, during the summer with the kids home, there's certain things I got used to not having to juggle in the same way. So I'm going through it too, but we're going to figure it out together. So I think they would describe me as someone that they feel like they know a bit and is, approachable. But at the same time, they know that if you're coming in for a discussion with me, a work topic, you need to come prepared. So I don't display a lot of tolerance for haphazard use of time. So, they know that's got to be, we got to take our work seriously. We're going to have fun, but we are going to take the work seriously. So come prepared and be ready. And I think that some of my, leadership, style or what I might be known for evolved a little bit during the pandemic because ironically, as we went home and did more over video, I found that more of the conversation I had with team members was about that personal connection. And that's where they needed the support more so than even on the work. So anyways, I like to think of myself as someone who's just seen as really committed to the team, committed to our success. I like to think they really do enjoy working for me. So, it can be hard to test some of those things. But I did say to one of my direct reports the other day, when I could tell that I had annoyed him a bit with one of my decisions, I said, hey, if I was perfect, what would you guys talk about all the time? So I try to give them a little space to, have their, their moments.
So we've come out of the lockdown. And that has changed the way that we work. What's your current policy of working at home, working in the office? How do you do that today?
Yeah. So at Intel, we're still trying to be one of, if not the most flexible tech company, in the world and when I say in the world, I mean of like the big ones in this space. So we're encouraging employees to come in 2 to 3 days a week to, the office and then choose and, make some flexibility choices on those other days. So some weeks that might mean you are in 4 days. Some weeks it might be 2 days. It just, can depend on your schedule. with my organization, I decided not to mandate particular days. Like we didn't say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I said, let's get started with this. Let's do this for 6 months and see what's working. And we can always adjust. Again, this is a few months old now, but people at first, there was some concern like, hey, I'm so productive at home. I've gotten so used to how I, get my work done. So there was a little hesitation, but as people have come back, I do feel like they're starting to feel that value of human connection. And there is something about feeding off the energy of others, having the opportunity to brainstorm and be creative. I think on days when I'm trying to, drive strategy or, again, unlock creativity, being in the office around the team is the absolute best. If it's a day where I'm working on documenting all of our, annual reviews, that might be a good day for me to just be holed up in my office at home, getting it done. So we're trying to all make those types of balanced choices.
So Lisa, let's do a deep dive. And in the end, this is a deep dive interview, right? So let's take a next step and let's talk about your personality, because I think there's a link, there's a connection, correlation between how people are wired, how they think about the personality and the successes they have in their jobs as a leader. And you shared with us that your MBTI profile is ENFJ, a protagonist. And these are people with extroverted, intuitive, feeling and judging personality traits. And these are typically warm, forthright types that love helping others. They tend to have strong ideas and values, and they back their perspective with creative energy to achieve their goals. So it's a wonderful profile, and I must say many of the top digital leaders around the world have a protagonist ENFJ profile. But I want to use this to talk a little bit about your strengths and your development areas, your weaknesses, if you want. So I'm going to give you 5 strengths of protagonists, and you tell me where do you recognize yourself, and maybe give an example of how you are in that. So typical strengths of the protagonist is that they are receptive, they are very reliable, they're passionate, they're altruistic, and they're charismatic. Where do you recognize yourself most, and talk a little bit about that?
I think the passionate, reliable, and charismatic are ones that just kind of jumped, out at me. Like on that reliable thing, when I've committed to something or someone, I treat that fairly set in stone. So I will then, bend all sorts of things, work all around the ways to make sure that I'm holding up and living, into that commitment. And then, the passionate, I do bring a lot of energy to the work that we do. And that's how I show up. And I understand how hard that might be for some people. Like, we do not all have the same personality type. So it's one of those things that it comes naturally to me. I have then seen how people respond to it. So then I've invested in it as well. So it's a strength built on a strength. And I see how when I show up like that, it can draw other people towards the challenge, towards the work. So I view it as a flywheel effect. And I think it's sort of related. That passionate and charismatic are sort of related. But I do, as a leadership trait, I do try to, again, I said this before, I try to show up to people as, a real person that they can connect with. I am a real person. Like, I have a life and I face all the same challenges. And so I don't want to just be this, exec that they, don't hardly even know anything about. And so I think some of that does help people feel that kind of connection. And, I am extroverted. I don't have, it's not a challenge for me to, meet new people and kind of make them feel comfortable and get them, sharing. So those are the ones I think that kind of jumped out at me when you said that.
Now, nobody's perfect.
No.
Every coin has 2 sides. So let's look at your darker side. Let's call them development areas. I mean, you have built quite a successful career. So you have overcome a number of these weaknesses, I would say. So potential weaknesses for protagonists is that they can be unrealistic. They can be overly idealistic. They can be condescending, talking down to people. They can sometimes be too intense or overly empathetic. Again, where do you recognize yourself and how have you overcome maybe some of these weaknesses?
Yeah, probably all of them other than overly empathetic. I've displayed or, experienced at one time or another, or maybe some of my staff would say every once in a while, at all times, just putting them all together in one bundle and delivering that. So I do have a certain intensity about me, and I also have a pace. Mm-hmm. And I know that pace is not necessarily for everything. And also, it doesn't always represent the amount of work that has to be done behind the scenes. And so I can be pushing forward progress at a rate that feels incredibly unnatural to people. So mm-hmm. It is an area where I have to, watch myself. The other one that's sort of related, I am an idea generator. And that can feel overwhelming to the team sometimes because for whatever reason, I am not a black and white thinker. I am not a yes-no thinker. There's never yes and there's never no. There's a million miles between saying yes and no to anything. Mm-hmm. And I like using time together to brainstorm, but I can be like an idea flutter. So I have a few things I do to manage myself through that. That's also intended to help my team. And I'll try to say, like, mm-hmm. as we start, okay, guys, this is just getting ideas on the table. This is not me expecting action out of this. Or I'll say something like, I just need to talk and think at the same time. Like, this works for me. Like, I'm not directing mm-hmm. you to do anything. I'm not asking for follow-up on this. I'm just thinking out loud, and it's helping me process this complex situation we're dealing with. And then we can come back to mm-hmm. it. I also ask my team sometimes to record our meetings. So again, the pandemic brought about some really great innovation in how we, engage and meet. And sometimes I'll say, I'm throwing a lot of ideas out here. Can we just record it? And then we can go back and listen or look and see if there's anything good there. Because if everyone's trying to like scribble notes, then they're not necessarily unlocking their brain at the same time too. Mm-hmm. So I do have a couple of ways, like I just said, that I try to manage my, intensities, if you will, and to at least give the team the sense that I recognize them as well.
Well, let's go again one level deeper from personality to values. And that is, you shared with us that you have two kids, yes. 9 and 13, yes. young kids that love Disneyland. And so tell me a little bit, what are the values that you're passing on to your children? And what are the core values that you live by yourself?
Yeah. When I think of, values for me and just what resonates, and I did think about this, like, what is the type of, person I'm drawn to? It's integrity and honesty. And I've just mm-hmm. realized over the years of whether it's, managing teams or, within, your personal life, it's just, a must for me. And I can say, the bigger the disaster, the calmer I get. I've actually done crisis management for Intel, and I'll tell you a little joke I've said before. If you tell me that everything has absolutely blown up, there is an absolute crisis on our hands, everyone's screaming in the streets, I'm like, okay, let's get started. Here's step one. If I forget my AirPods one day for work, I'm like, I'm out. I can't do anything. I can't function. I don't know how to handle life without a headset. And so like little things can set me off, but the bigger the mess, the calmer I get and the more just focused and driven I get. And so I'm good for crisis management in that regard. So I can handle colossal messes. I can handle screw ups that shouldn't have happened and we should have known better, but I can't handle cover-ups. As I say, like, I can't handle it. I need the people around me that will tell me the truth. I can help us out of any sticky situation. And I need them to trust me enough to tell me the truth. Because if it starts to get covered up and then I'm doing the unpeeling, I go into a much different like mood and mode about just, I do not like to work in that environment when I don't feel like I can trust what I'm hearing from the team members. So I think it's just really important. Get it on the table. We know what we're dealing with, and then we can really work together to solve big problems.
Okay, now, Lisa, you clearly have created great success, but we all have our screw-ups and our failures. We were just talking about it. So what was one of my favorite questions in these interviews? If you look back on your career, what was maybe your most brilliant failure that you have encountered, and what did you learn from it?
I've had the unfortunate, experience of having to disappoint my customers in some really big ways. Not something I'm particularly proud of. And I recognize my role in that, but there is nothing so devastating as going out to your customers and having to tell them you're slipping a product, you're changing the schedule on them. They've done all the work. They've spent millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to be ready on the time you told them you were going to deliver a product. And for whatever reason, you didn't get it ready on that time frame. And to some extent, it doesn't even matter the reason. I mean, they always want to know. But the point is, they bet their business on you. And they were planning on launching their products, their services, their capabilities, their digital transformation on what you told them. And then you have to go in and reset that. And it's devastating. And this impact that you're having. And it's so draining. It's so negative. It hurts trust in relationships. Now, obviously, you can handle it well. You can be authentic. You can be transparent. You can tell them the minute you know. So you can use best known methods to make it the best of the worst, but there is nothing worse than disappointing your customers like that. So I take that pretty seriously, and unfortunately, I have absolutely had to do that. But you do learn from it, and you evolve and come out of it. I try to share that experience with as many people as possible, because not everybody not all of our 10,000 Xeon people talk to customers. But I want them to hear and feel what that disappointment looks like, so that when we make our commitments, we actually think like my customer is betting on us, and make those commitments with that mindset. So it's changed some of the ways in which we, how we set schedules, how we structure them, the type of updates we give along the way to give confidence, all of that. So we've taken action out of the reality of having to do this, but I do consider it truly, a most challenging moment in a career, most difficult to kind of like pull yourself up from the bootstraps, to readjust and adapt to. And one of the hardest things you have to do is call up your customers.
Let's look again at the flip side of this, and let's look at the bright side. I mean, if you reflect back on your career, what was maybe the best thing that has ever happened to you, and would you care to share that?
Oh, sure. I mean, so many great things. Like, again, I take such pride in being, again, part of this entire digital foundation that runs the world. It's so cool. And then I have some experiences from when I was in Intel IT, where I know the work that myself and my team did made the experience of being an Intel employee better. And I feel a lot of pride for some of those, and I can tell you about them. But probably the best thing that ever happened to me personally was when I first experienced true sponsorship. So we talk a lot about mentorship, but this was sponsorship. This was our CIO at the time and one of her staff members putting me into a job that I would say, CV-wise, I was holistically unqualified for. I wouldn't have made it through a first screen. And they sat me down, and I distinctly remember sitting with them, having this conversation, and they said, "You're ready for this. You can do this. We believe in you, and it's going to be great." I wouldn't have even applied for that role. So I moved into it was my first big move into a senior level management with a global organization spanning 60 countries, a lot of employees, multiple levels of management. And it was, all new to me in a domain that wasn't holistically mine. So it had learning curves everywhere. There was nothing I didn't need to learn. But what I'll say is when you get sponsored like that, I probably for several months fell asleep every night with my head hitting my laptop because I was studying, learning, and I knew I will die before I disappoint these two people that sponsored me. It will not happen. They have cloaked me in their personal credibility to give me this role, and I will never do anything but be the best, impress them, handle it, lead, and, own this role. It's too important. So that sponsorship is amazing, but it is earned. And then your response to that sponsorship has to be, I'm going to tackle this or die trying.
Is that a typical Intel thing where is there a coaching culture, a mentoring culture, and does that go up and down? Do you mentor some people as well?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of mentoring culture. I think we're still growing in these leadership roles of understanding what true sponsorship looks like. And I don't know, I honestly don't know if you can become a true sponsor until you've experienced it yourself. So I knew once I moved into that role, for me, it was a senior director role. It was the one right before I became a VP. I spent 6 months just grinding to make sure I was able to handle it, to, do the job, to lead the team, to figure it all out. And then once I had my, feet under me, I had this realization. I'm a senior leader at the company. I wasn't a VP yet, but I was just one level below. And it's my job to start sponsoring people. So I need to start looking down, 1 or 2 levels into the organization and pulling people into bigger roles or pulling them into things that they, maybe don't see in themselves that they can do. So for me, that was the moment that it became a leadership characteristic of mine. And I still, to this day, seek to do that. Yes, I will mentor. I'll also fire mentees if we've had multiple rounds of advice giving and no action is taken. But the sponsorship is something where, I grab someone and say, you over here, you got this, let's go. And so I think it's so important as leaders to do that and to do it with some thoughts in mind on diversity of experience, of talent, of thought process, not to just do it for people that look exactly like you.
Yeah. Now, Lisa, you come across to me as somebody who's high energy, you're very passionate, you want the results, you challenge people. What needs to happen that at the end of the week, when you go back to your family, when do you feel really, really happy and what is it that maybe that drives you really in your work and your life?
Yeah, there's kind of 2 things. There's one is obviously on the work side of it, it's, hitting those commitments, working through those difficult challenges, seeing the team, get aligned around a new strategy or execute to the strategy, drive. And so when we make big progress there, that obviously feels great. But the longer that I have, been in a leadership level position, the more of the balance of all of that has shifted towards the best weeks or the best times for me or when I feel like I have unlocked someone else. And it's when I have, driven a sponsorship action, when I have seen someone break through on something I've been coaching them for a while and they put it all together. When I see that progress from whether it's my team, a peer's team, it doesn't, matter who, but when I see the people that I work with and I seek to inspire and grow actually achieve growth and demonstrate it, those are the things that, kind of light me up. I remember in the last couple of years, promotion that I was able to, give out. And this one was when we had, worked on for a couple of years. And when I heard, when I got the news as the leader that the promotion had gone through, I recognized, I was like, I actually am feeling more like emotional satisfaction about this than my own most recent promotion, which was great. I mean, it's great. It's good to get promoted. Obviously, I'm advancement driven. You don't get here if you're not. But just that recognition that like I am more excited about having helped someone achieve this level and their career goals was kind of an eye opener for me.
So high level of energy.
Yeah.
How do you relax when you get home in the weekends, during holidays? How do you fill your batteries again?
Yeah. Well, I did tell you, I really love pickleball. It is so fun. And I know maybe some of you listening are tennis players. And I know there's, sometimes tennis player pickleball tension. Give it a try. If you've never tried it, anyone can pick it up in about 30 minutes. So I have a couple groups I love to play pickleball with. It's just fun for me. And I love to read. I love to read. I genuinely enjoy spending time with my children, but I don't call it relaxation. That's just usually not what it ends up being. We're running around to a lot of sports, a lot of different fields, a lot of different games. And it's funny because I thought, man, before I had kids, how do parents handle all this, like spending all weekend sitting in the bleachers? But I realize when it's your own kid, it's actually super fun. It's great to see them grow and you get to know the whole team and their friends. And so I've actually really enjoyed that kind of being a sports mom more than I thought I would.
Okay, and what is it that you like to read? What genre of books?
Oh my gosh, I primarily fiction, though I do like leadership stories and books. I like personal stories more than like how-to manuals. And I read an inordinate amount of World War II, either fiction or nonfiction books. So I don't know, it's just a genre and a time that, fascinates me and is also something we should obviously never forget.
Okay. Now, Lisa, do you have a personal mantra, a saying that helps you in difficult times to help you make a decision or work with people?
Yeah, it's a bit yogic, and probably for me, it's find your breath. I'm quick-witted. I'm quick with my tongue. So I have tried to coach myself over the years to moderate success, to think at times before, speaking and to be more purposeful. So, you're dialing up the contrast on a certain topic, do it on purpose. It's totally okay when you're doing it on purpose. Don't do it because you kind of just, it happened. So find your breath is probably for me the one that I use the most. Okay,
Lisa, you're featured in the third edition of our CIONET cookbook, which is a collaboration that we're doing together with Red Hat and with Intel. Tell us a little bit about your cooking skills and what's your favorite recipe?
Okay, I actually do think I'm a very good cook and I love it. However, I like to do more of the kind of standout, more interesting, nicer dinners. I do get exhausted by the fact of feeding a family 7 days a week. So it's like, is it taco night again? What are we doing? So sometimes that gets to me. But I have, I think, an amazing spaghetti sauce recipe that I think it's standout. And so that's one of my signature dishes. I have a carrot cake that my family has given the highest rating, which is restaurant quality. We call it RQ. It's our highest rating, and we actually say when it's better than a restaurant is when you actually earn RQ. And then I have a really good chocolate chip cookie recipe that, it includes some drawn butter and all of that. It's real good. So I'll make you some next time.
Can we publish it? Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that. But could we publish maybe one of your recipes in our cookbook?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If we're doing real recipes, I'd be happy to send one in.
Lisa, thank you so much for your time. We're coming to the last question of this interview. And that's, you have made quite a career. And so people that are watching these interviews, some of them are highly ambitious and they want to follow in your footsteps. So what is the advice that you would give to future leaders that want to build a big career in technology?
Yeah. It does take a certain level of, commitment and focus. So I wouldn't want to, mislead anyone on that. Like, you do have to, push and drive and take on the bigger assignments and really stretch yourselves. But if I were to think of the biggest piece of advice, it's one that I actually got from a mentor and friend several years ago. And it was really still do all of this while being authentic to yourself. Now, you can always work to create the best version of yourself. So I'm not saying don't grow and improve. Absolutely do that. But you cannot afford to burn energy trying to pretend you're someone that you're not. And so bring your whole self to the problems. I don't necessarily look like the average, executive in my position and role. And I don't mean that as like a physical looks. I mean, from my background, my domain expertise, the experience that I've had, all of those things. But when you put it together and I bring the heart of what is me to these challenges, I do believe I am the best person for this role in the world. And that confidence only comes from, again, being true to yourself, being authentic, and really, pushing yourself forward. So that's what I would say to people that are kind of in any phase of their career.
Okay, super. So Lisa, thank you again. I look forward to tasting your spaghetti sauce, your carrot cake, and your chocolate cookies. It was really a pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you.